This isn't a rendering or AI generated. These are real declassified images of a new experimental UUV called Manta Ray, which has been undergoing sea trials in recent months. And it shouldn't come as a surprise that the company behind it is Northrop Grumman, who aren't strangers to making some really out-of-the-box stuff. But as cool as this is, the reason this caught my attention isn't because of the Manta Ray itself, but instead the government agency funding the project, DARPA. If you've never heard of DARPA, they're basically the Pentagon's mad science division with an unlimited budget. To put it in perspective, some of the projects DARPA is at least partially responsible for include GPS, Siri, satellites, laser-guided weapons, this thing, and the internet itself. So when I see that DARPA is giving millions of dollars to Northrop Grumman to develop this giant seabird, it tells me two things. One, we're likely to see more of these UUVs. And two, it tells me that Northrop continues to be a leader in bleeding-edge technology for years to come. And stock purchases of Northrop by several US lawmakers only reinforces this. Here's the catch though. Northrop Grumman made $10 billion last quarter alone. The Pentagon could order 100 of these things and it would barely budge the needle for a company as big as Northrop. But it got me wondering, what other companies are making unmanned vehicles, or more specifically, underwater ones? Stick with me. To figure this out, I looked for companies that have been spending money on corporate lobbying recently, which specifically mention unmanned underwater vehicles, or UUV, as the reason for the lobbying. Here's where it gets interesting though. When I looked up what companies were lobbying for UUVs, you had your usual suspects. Massive defense contractors like Huntington Ingalls and General Dynamics. But there's one company that kept popping up that I've never heard of. A small underwater robotics company called Nauticus Robotics, ticker KITT, who have several UUVs in the pipeline and have won government contracts in the past. Here's where it gets crazy though. They're under so much financial stress right now that I almost completely moved on from them. But that was until, by complete chance, something caught my eye. A recent insider purchase of 100,000 Nauticus shares made by newly appointed company director Bill Flores. Now, if this was just any old board director, I probably wouldn't pay too much attention to it. But his name sounded familiar to me, so I did some digging, and that's when I made the connection. Bill Flores, the new director at Nauticus and the person who just bought 100,000 shares of the company, was a US congressman until just last election, representing Texas for more than 10 years. The fact that Bill Flores is loading up on shares of a company like Nauticus, who could desperately use a financial lifeline in the form of a big government contract, and alongside the recent lobbying spending, all while this DARPA Manta Ray project is in full swing, it makes me wonder if Bill Flores knows something that we don't. But if you want to do this for yourself or see any of the data that I mentioned in the video, check out Quiver where I track it all live.